G'day guys, Shannon from Aquariums here. In this video we're just going to be talking about filtration. I'm just going to discuss why filtration is important, and I'm going to talk about two different types of filtration systems that are probably the two most popular ones around that are recommended for medium to large sized aquariums. So I'll be showing you two of these filtration systems on my own tanks, and just showing you how basically they're set up and how they work. So first one I'm going to show you is on the tank behind me. So this is my 450 litre aquarium, and I'm running a sump on this aquarium. Now sumps are recommended for larger aquariums over canister filters, which are the next ones I'm going to be talking about. You can run large aquariums on canister filters, but usually you'd need to use two canister filters, have one at either end of the aquarium. For anything over 250 litres you'd want at least two canisters. Which is why I'm running a sump on this one. It's just much better suited to a large aquarium, and you'll see why when I show you how it's set up and explain how it works. So we'll just jump straight into that. Okay guys, now this is my sump running this aquarium. Before I get into how it works, I'm just going to show you where it starts. So it starts up here in the aquarium. At either end of the aquarium, you see there's a bulkhead there. And up the other end of the aquarium, there's another bulkhead. That's my overflow. So those two bulkheads, basically water is flowing down those bulkheads, down a hose at either end. So I've got the two hoses at either end with water coming down them. Got one here and the other one here. They're both flowing into the first chamber of the sump. So water is going down here, it goes underneath the glass here. There's a gap of about 1.5 centimeters. So flows down, under. Water is forced to come up through this media, which I'll explain what that does in a second. Overflows there, through some filter wool, through some more media, which I've got in a bag there. Underneath this bit of glass again, up through some more sponge, over into the last chamber. Now, the last chamber is where I have my return pump. That's basically what's pumping the water back up into the aquarium. So the beauty of a sump is you can control exactly how much water you want to have flowing through your aquarium. You can do that simply by changing the return pump to whatever size you like. So on this aquarium I'm running a 3,000 litre an hour Eheim compact pump. If I was to say get an even bigger aquarium down the track, I can use this sump on it still. All I'd have to do is upgrade the pump to a slightly more powerful one to match that aquarium. So sump's quite universal, you just change the pump size. So I have also customized one other little thing on this sump that sumps don't normally come with built in. Well, some might, some don't, just depends where you get them, I suppose. What I've got here, I've got an emergency drainage system. Now this is basically in the event of a blackout, you're going to get a lot of backflow. When the power cuts, there'll be excess water in the aquarium that is still going to continue to overflow down those pipes into the sump for a little while. Basically, I'll get about between 10 and 15 litres backflowing. So yeah, have a power cut, about 10 to 15 litres, continue to overflow down the bulkheads, down into the sump, because the bulkheads are slightly submerged underwater. So all that water that's covering them is still going to continue to overflow in the event of a blackout. So the sump will fill up. And under normal circumstances, this particular sump would overflow at least 5 to 10 litres onto the floor. So what I've done to this sump is I've got a hole that I've drilled here, put this fitting in so water can flow through there, and I've just got an elbow joint at this end and a little 35 litre aquarium there. So in the event of a blackout, instead of my sump overflowing, water just flows into the 35 litre aquarium. And yeah, that avoids that whole issue of making a mess on the floor. So I highly recommend doing this to your sump, putting in some sort of emergency drainage system like this. If you have the room for this second tank, do it. It'll save you a lot of trouble. Unless, of course, you have a sump that's much taller and it can handle the volume of water that backflows. Otherwise, this is highly recommended. So what I'm just going to discuss now all the filtration I've got in here and what it does. So at the bottom of this chamber, you can't really see, but there's a coarse sponge. That'll just help catch large particles. Basically, I'll clean it out every couple of weeks when I do my water change. The second chamber is just media. Media is what we call biological filtration, and this is why a sump is one of the best filtration systems, because a sump can basically handle maximum waste load because it can hold maximum bacteria, because you can pack a lot of media in a sump. What I mean by bacteria and media is basically, okay, this is a marine pure ball. It's a really good type of media. I highly recommend this one. If you look really closely at it, all little holes in it, it's basically hollow. Water flows straight through this. Bacteria grows on this ball, basically. Lives inside it in all the little holes and on the whole surface, basically. So as water's flowing through this, any waste that's in the water, any ammonia for example, or nitrite, the bacteria feeds on that and it breaks it down. So basically it stops your water from becoming polluted. So the more bacteria, the more media you have, the more bacteria you can house in your filtration system. So the more biological filtration you have, therefore the more fish you can keep. So the more media, the better. Bearing in mind, bacteria only grows to match the amount of fish waste in the aquarium, provided it has enough media to live on. So adding more media to your filter doesn't necessarily give you more bacteria. Only if for some reason you're having ammonia issues because you don't have enough media, therefore you don't have enough bacteria to handle the waste load in the aquarium, you add more media so you can get more bacteria. But if I've already got a large amount of media and I don't have any ammonia or nitrite, adding more media isn't going to really give me more bacteria if the amount of bacteria I currently have can handle my fish waste load. So keep that in mind. But saying that, I always say if you can add more media, add more media. It's better to be safe than sorry. Fish do get bigger and start producing more waste, especially if you get fish that grow fast. If you happen to overfeed by accident one day, you're kind of covered if you got extra media. So that explains that. In the next chamber I've got just some filter wall, which just catches all the fine particles that the media and the sponge can't catch, so I just remove that every week when it's looking a bit dirty. Underneath I've just got another filter bag full of more media. The last chamber, I've got a coarse sponge again, and this is actually Texas Holy Rock. The reason I've got the Texas Holy Rock is calcium based, so it buffers your pH up. I normally wouldn't recommend it unless you're keeping fish at like a high pH, like cichlids for example, your African cichlids especially, or even goldfish. The fish I'm keeping in this tank, Saratoga for example, is an Australian native fish. They like a pH of around 7. They don't really like a high pH. So you're probably thinking, why have I got Texas Holy Rock in a tank that doesn't need high pH? Well, this tank's pH is naturally quite low because of all the driftwood I've got in there. Driftwood will lower the pH a bit. So the pH is normally around 6.5 normally. It's quite low. A bit too low for these fish. So I've got just a few small pieces of Texas Holy Rock in the filter just to buffer the pH up to 7. Now this doesn't work in every aquarium. Every aquarium reacts different to this, so I don't recommend doing this unless you have an idea of what you're doing. My pH is now at 7 because of these few small pieces of rock. If I was to put more in, yes, it would buffer it probably too high. So not something I'd recommend doing for everybody, but that's just what I've done and it's working for me. So this is basically a sump setup. I do have 2 other things running on this sump, which you don't really need to run for freshwater. But this aquarium used to be saltwater and I've just left them running, especially because our summer has just passed and it was quite a hot summer. The tank was overheating quite a lot and even my freshwater fish were getting a bit sick. So yes, I will show you what I've got running on this. So I also have a Haleu chiller. Now chiller is normally just used for marine fish, especially if you're keeping corals, but my tank was overheating and even the freshwaters were getting quite sick from it, so I've put a chiller on. So what the chiller does, you set the temperature. So for example, I've set this chiller to 26 degrees. If the temperature goes over 26, the chiller turns on and starts chilling the water until it's like about 0.5 degrees below your set temperature. So they're quite good for maintaining that. And the other thing I have running on here is this here. This is a DeBarry UV sterilizer. Again, I was using this when I had saltwater fish, but I've just left it on there because, to be honest, I couldn't really be bothered taking it off. And I mean, it's still going to do good things being connected to this aquarium. Basically, the sterilizer does two things. First thing it does is it reduces algae quite a lot. And the second thing it does, it kills parasites. Any parasite or algae spore that goes through the sterilizer does not come back out, it just gets killed. The only maintenance you need to do on the sterilizer is you replace the bulb once a year. That's basically it. So I highly recommend a sterilizer if you're keeping any rare or expensive fish, or especially if you're going to keep marine fish. Highly recommend a sterilizer. I personally wouldn't set up a marine tank without one. So that covers this tank's filtration system. This is basically for a large aquarium. Sumps aren't really needed for medium to small aquariums, unless again you are going saltwater. I can't stress that enough. Saltwater aquariums must be kept with a sump. There are some people out there probably keeping saltwater fish with canister filters. Not saying it can't be done, but it limits you quite a lot. So sump is the way to go for saltwater. Freshwater, you can have any option you want. You can run a freshwater tank on canisters. If you have a small freshwater tank, you can use internal filters or hang on the back filters. So now we're going to talk about canisters. I will just go over to my other aquarium and show you that. Righty guys, so now we're going to talk about this aquarium. Now this is just a goldfish aquarium. I've just got some fancy goldfish in here. This is actually an aquarium I set up for my mother a few years ago. And it's been running quite well just on a canister filter. So we'll get into that. So this aquarium, by the way, is 200 litres. It's just a standard 4-foot tank, so nothing too fancy there. And yes, it's just got a few large fancy goldfish in it. And I'm just running one canister on this, so we'll have a quick look at that. So yeah, that's basically a canister filter. They do come in different models and different brands. This particular one is Elite. That's the brand name. Mind you, Elite's not really sold much anymore. I bought this quite a few years ago. The main two canisters that are sold now are either Aqua One or Eheim. Eheim is by far the best one around. Aqua One's still fine. I mean, I've got an Aqua One canister running on another small aquarium of mine, and I haven't had any issues with it. But Eheim, it's a German-made product. Aqua One's Chinese. It's better quality of parts, that's about all. But anyways, that's not really important now. So, in your canister, when you buy it, basically it comes with everything you need when you buy it initially. It comes with all the hoses, all the taps, suction cups. It comes with all the sponges, media, all the baskets. Basically, it comes with everything you need to set it up. So when you buy a canister, you don't have to buy anything extra. So all you got to do, put everything inside your canister, your media, your sponges, all that stuff. Then you have to prime the canister filter. Now, whoever's looking after you at your aquarium shop that you go and buy it from, they will happily walk you through how to prime a canister filter. Can't really show you right now because it's already set up and running. So you've got to prime it, but once it's running, you're sweet. Canisters, you don't have to clean that often either. You can clean a canister out once a month and there's usually no issues there. These are probably a second to a sump with biological filtration. They can hold quite a lot of media as well, so they're still very good. Canisters are not the fastest flow rate type of filter. I mean, they're very good for their biological filtration, but as far as flow rate goes, they don't put out a very fast flow. They're very minimal on that. They're all about biological filtration. So if you're going to run a canister on a large aquarium like the one we were just looking at, again, you'd either have to have two of them, running one at each end of the aquarium, or you'd have to have one up one end and have a wave maker of some sort up the other end, just to compensate that flow, because you're going to get a lot of dead spots. Dead spots is where all the waste is going to build up. You're going to have problems from that. So you got to think about that if you're going to put canisters on anything that's over 200 to 250 litres. Which this tank's right on 200 litres. This canister does the job fine by itself. So yeah, it's basically a canister filter. Basically it just comes with two hoses. So yeah, you've got one hose that's your inlet and one hose that's your outlet. Depending on the model of canister you have, the hoses are going to be in different spots, but it's just one in and one out hose. You have them both in the same corner. I found is the best filtration if you have them both in the same corner. You just have your outlet just under the water's surface like that, so you get some surface agitation, you get some rippling on the top of your tank. You want that rippling, that surface tension to break, because that's how you get oxygen exchange when water's doing that. So yeah, otherwise your fish are going to suffocate if there's not adequate water movement, because fish need water movement to extract oxygen out of the water with their gills. If the water's not moving enough, the flow's too slow, or if you're not getting enough surface agitation, yes, your fish are going to be at the top of the tank gasping for air. Other than that, yeah, as I was saying, canisters, you clean them out once a month. With any filter, that includes the sump, or really any filtration system, when cleaning them out. Okay, anything in a filter you're cleaning that you're going to put back in, so any of the coarse sponges that you keep, if you're going to clean your media at some stage, occasionally you clean the media, not every time, but it does get a bit gunked up after a while, so yeah, occasionally you clean the media. Wash it in water that's out of your aquarium. So when you're doing your water changes, the water you've taken out of your tank, before you throw that away, clean your sponges in that, because that bacteria that's in those sponges and in the media, you don't want to lose that. You clean it under the tap water's got chlorine in it, kills all your bacteria straight away basically. If you do that, and you put all that stuff back in the filter with no bacteria, you've got this high, you've got waste in your tank still, you've got fish producing waste, and suddenly you've got no bacteria to break that down, so you're going to get ammonia. By the next day, everything's going to start dying probably. So yeah, anything you're taking out and putting back in, wash in tank water, except for filter wool, the white poly filter. That stuff, you just use it once it gets gross and dirty, you replace it, so you don't have to worry about that. And things like carbon. Carbon's quite good to use in aquariums. I mean, what carbon does, it absorbs toxins and impurities. And it does help keep your water a bit clearer too. But it expires after about 4 weeks. So you just have to remember to remove your carbon and throw it away every 4 weeks, because if you leave it in there and it expires, all those toxins that it's absorbed up over the 4 weeks, they're all going to leach out at once. And yeah, that's not going to be too good for your tank. So carbon, replace every 4 weeks. Same as Purigen. Purigen's very good. Purigen's probably better than carbon. It's more efficient, and it's more, I guess it's just better for the user as well financially, like money. You don't have to keep buying it. You buy a bag of Purigen, or actually better off buying 2 bags of Purigen, put one in the aquarium. But Purigen, you can regenerate it and you keep using it. So if you leave it in there for 3-4 weeks, once it's absorbed to its maximum, it's not going to expire and leach everything back out. It's just going to stop absorbing things. So if you let it go a bit longer, it doesn't really matter too much. So once it's once it's reached its maximum level of absorbing things basically, you just take it out of your filter, because you've bought 2 of them, you take the old one out, you put the new one in. While the new one's in, you can regenerate the old one and just swap them over every 4 weeks. To regenerate Purigen, all you got to do, just get a bucket or a container, fill it with just your normal bleach, just your black and gold brand bleach, nothing too fancy. Fill it with, make a mix of 50% bleach, 50% water. Let it soak in that for a few days, 2, 3, 4 days, just till it goes white again, or as white as you think it's going to get. Once it's white, you can then soak it again in just some water with some water conditioner to remove the chlorine out of that water, because chlorine's kind of like bleach, so it defeats the purpose of just putting it in tap water. So you water conditioner in some water in a bucket, let it soak like that for a day or 2. there's not really a set time period on how long to soak Purigen. It's usually 2 to 3 days roughly. I mean, you can smell it. After you've been soaking it in that conditioned water, if you can take it out and smell it, you can't smell bleach anymore, then it's fine to reuse. And so you can just keep swapping them over like that if you buy 2 of them. That way you're not having to buy carbon every 4 weeks. And it's safer because, as I said, carbon, when it expires, it leaches everything back out into the aquarium. When Purigen's reached its limit, it doesn't leach everything back out, it just stops absorbing and holds what it's currently got, and that's it. So much safer and much more efficient for everyone to use. Don't have to be buying carbon all the time. That's basically it for filtration. I'll quickly just mention, because as I mentioned before when I was talking about my sump, about the Texas Holyrock raising pH, you'll notice there's Texas Holyrock in this tank, and that is because goldfish do like the higher pH. So I know this video is not really about that right now, it's about filtration, but I just thought I'd quickly mention that. Anyone wondering, goldfish do like a higher pH, around 8 to 8.5. That's why I've got Texas Holyrock in there. So other than these 2 filtration systems, the other 2 that you can use are your internal filters and your hang on the back filters. They're not in this video because I don't really have any tanks running on them for 2 reasons. Most of my tanks are too big for them, and I just honestly, they'd be my last choice for a filter. I mean, if I was just setting up a really small, like say 20 or 30 litre aquarium with a few simple little fish in there, I'd go and hang on the back style filter. I personally prefer them over internal filters. I just don't like to look, because the internal filter, the whole unit sits in your aquarium. I just don't like looking at that. But they do the same job, they just don't look as nice. But a lot of hang-on filters and internal filters, they can't hold very much media in them, or like they usually come with some sponge and maybe a little bit of media, but not very much. I find you can have a few small fish with that, and that's about it really. So yes, I'm more of a canister filter person, even for small tanks myself. I've got for those of you who've watched some of my other videos, I have a 45 litre cube planted aquarium, and that's just running on a little Aqua 1 canister filter. It does about 500 litres an hour, and it does a great job. That's only a small aquarium. Most people with an aquarium that size would put in an internal filter or a hang-on, but I prefer the canister still, and I think it does a really good job. One area a lot of people do go wrong in, they will undercut on their filtration. Honestly, when you're first setting your tank up, filtration is the one thing you want to overdo. If you can afford the next size up filter, get it, because fish grow. You eventually get more fish. You might want to upgrade to a bigger aquarium later. So you're better off just getting the next size up filter to what you think you need. I've learnt that the hard way in the past. So I've had to just upgrade anyway. I have had hang-on filters on that small planted aquarium. They did the job fine at first, but after a while they'd be dirty after like 2-3 days. Because it's plants, they shed leaves, the thing would constantly get blocked up with leaves. Yeah, it just did not cut it, really. So I'd say just get a filter that's a bit bigger than what you think you need. If you can get one that's adjustable, you can adjust the flow rate, even better. You can just turn it up a bit if you need to. But yes, definitely, don't undercut your filtration, you'll end up regretting it later. So that's basically my opinion on filtration and my little tutorial on my systems I got running. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one.